I should unmute my microphone.
Yeah,
Welcome from Copenhagen, from the second day of our Community Reporter live show. I have always a nice team with me, and thank you for being there. And without further ado, I give it up to my wonderful moderators, Tracy and Chris. Good. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Thank you so much, Michael. It's good to be back. Hello.
Yes, I did. It was nice when you left us yesterday for Earth, but I see that you're back.
I thought we got past that, but apparently not.
I'll never get past
I
that.
had to leave early to go give my session.
Well,
But I'm going to be hearing about this for weeks or months. Right. Okay. Every time I ask for a favor,
That's going to be there.
All right. Well, we had a great day today. There's a lot going on.
Yep.
Starting with, I don't know what you were doing today, attending all those sessions.
I did attend every single one of them.
Yeah, what happens when you go to these events and are also trying to work and have client meetings and partner meetings and other things that happen. But that's one of the benefits of being back in person.
It is.
It's a great thing. So, well, one thing we can talk about just very briefly was the keynote. So we're talking about kind of I don't know what the official title of it was. Do you have that there?
So the 6 steps to prepare for the metaverse.
How are you preparing for the metaverse, Tracy?
Well, firstly is I try and wake up early every morning and just get everything in place.
That's good.
I'm not preparing for the metaverse. It's not happening. Why don't we go back to you? How are you preparing for the metaverse?
I am saving up the money to be able to buy legs for my avatar. So that's how I'm getting ready. So it's going to take, in a couple of years, I hope to get there. So no, it's.
And we're back.
Yeah, it's like, all right. Well, why don't we jump over to the first interview? So we have Martin and Cameron, and so we'll just turn the time over to you. We'll come back. We'll gather our thoughts around the topic,
that
and we'll
seems
get back
to be new. I don't know if we can top that joke, but wow. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Cameron Dwyer, and, well, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. How's your conference so far?
It is awesome to be back in person, actually seeing people in real life. It's the first time I've travelled outside of Australia since 2019. So seeing old friends, meeting new people, it's just a fantastic feeling.
Yeah. Everybody makes it, especially the first day, everybody's so happy, excited, talking again. And it's the spontaneous chats, right? We had all those Teams meetings, and there's our boundaries, right? If it's virtual. And
oh, for sure. This just proves, being back in this environment just proves that there's just something missing from those virtual interactions that we have that we just can't replace. So I'm just absolutely loving being able to spend time with people.
Yeah, same here. So what's the things that you noticed during the conference? What are the things that fall in place, or that you see different, or what are your takeaways so far?
So far, I've been on the booth down in the expo area, so I haven't been to too many sessions so far. But one of the things that's been resonating with most of the people I've been talking with is just finding ways to get the adoption of Microsoft 365, and in particular, struggling from this issue of just information overload for their users. The more that Microsoft 365 gets deployed and the more it gets used within an organization, just being able to find data. There's just more and more data getting put up into Microsoft 365, which is a good thing, but being able to manage that, get the right data to the right users at the right time, that's coming through in the questions that we're being asked.
Yeah, so the amount of data flowing in organizations, I think for many years it was like doubling every 18 months. So the amount of unstructured data, actually. So I agree, and also the number that Jeff Teeper showed at the keynote yesterday. I think it's the 1.6 billion 1.6 billion gigabytes, no, terabytes of data coming into Microsoft 365 every day.
It's mind-blowing. Like, it makes no sense. Like, that is a ridiculous amount of data.
There's a lot of zeros there. and of course, organizations keep producing documents, and there's also multiple applications, and organizations are using more and more software as a services, and we have Power Apps coming in, so you have different Power Apps, but mostly that unstructured data, that's hard to manage. So what would be one of the solutions to do so? What are the key things that you have more management or more access to all that files?
Yeah. Well, I think in understanding the problem, one of the extra influxes of data that I see coming into the Microsoft 365 world is actually people starting to use Microsoft 365 as a platform to build business solutions on, their core business solutions. And this is replacing what used to be proprietary products or off-the-shelf products that they'll buy or get customized. Typical things that we see are something like a project management system or a legal matter management system. Now, historically, this would be an application that a user would have a desktop icon for. They would click on it, and when they go in there, they know they're in the project management system. And similarly, if it's legal, they could be opening up some sort of legal application. That's where they do their legal matter management. But more and more, we're seeing organisations leverage Microsoft 365 because it's got the great governance controls in place, it's got the records management, it's got the document management, so it's a perfect platform to build these types of solutions on. But from an end user's perspective, Microsoft 365, or in particular SharePoint, because that's where the documents end up, typically SharePoint will start off as an intranet or a point solution. But then as we start to replace what were these line of business systems and start bringing them into SharePoint, SharePoint's now not just the intranet, it's intranet, plus it's the project management system, plus it's the legal matter management system, plus it's the HR system, plus it's the policies and procedures system, it's the departmental storage sort of places as well. But for the poor end user, they're now just opening up a browser window and they've got all of this information that they're confronted with. So there's just this deluge, and especially for a new starter inside of an organisation, it's really hard to find the information that's relevant to them because, let's face it, no one in the organisation needs to know everything that's up there. So how do we get the right information to the right people at the right time?
And we need solutions for that. We need to guide people to the right data source. So actually, since you're now repeating this, the good thing is what's happening is we're getting less silos of data. And so for many decades, one of the bigger problems was you had to go to all those different systems, and now your data, like project data, HR data, that's more and more coming together within the Microsoft Cloud, which brings amazing benefits like unified search, for example.
100%, yes.
So we're getting there are good steps here too. The fact that it's there, but still the navigation and the ability for the average user to use search and advanced search, that's still something. I think I had a good conversation with Tracy about this actually in the past. She has like a slide where there's like the maturity levels of search basically, and most people still think in like folders and structures, and almost everybody is capable of doing navigation in a hierarchical way, like going down into folders. That everybody gets that.
Yes.
But as soon as you're doing like tag-based search or horizontal search on keywords, then it gets difficult, and you would lose like very quickly like 50% of the people because they just want to click buttons and navigate. How would you see how could we help people making that navigation within Microsoft 365 maybe an easier experience? Have ideas?
Sure. Well, I guess 100% echo your sentiments on the fact that it is good that we're getting it into a single repository, because it also means from an administrative perspective, from a governance perspective, security perspective, there's a lot of benefits just to having it all on the Microsoft 365 platform. But yeah, you're right. It's how do we get those? It's almost like how do we get the segregation back from an end user's ability to navigate the system? And I think there's many different approaches to it, and I think these are the challenges and how we go about doing this in different ways for the users, and I think a lot of it would depend on how users, what hub they're using to navigate. Because some people are coming in through Teams, some coming in through SharePoint, but I think what we're starting to do is we're looking at Microsoft 365 as a storage platform. I mean, SharePoint has almost become an API in a sense, in that it's a file storage. So I think what we also need to look at is that we have to start removing ourselves from the concept that the SharePoint UI is the only way to navigate this data. Teams has proven that it can be done in other ways. You don't necessarily need to go through SharePoint. So we could still have this being the back-end repository, Microsoft 365 being the back-end repository of data, but let's start to think about, well, maybe there is different front ends for going into the legal system and going into the project system. And there's many products out there in this space that are already starting to try to make sense of that information and drive it down to the users. I'm a big advocate. I've been an Office development MVP and now I'm Microsoft 365 development MVP, but I've been a big advocate on developing integrations inside of existing applications. So I do a lot of development inside of the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. But the reason I find that that's such a compelling place to do integration work is that's where users are actually working day in, day out. that's where they're creating the data, that's where they're consuming the data. So by trying to bring the right information to those people inside of those applications, I think that's where the real value is. But then when you overlay that with these different types of systems that they're working with, whether it be HR policies or legal or projects, trying to understand the context of what is the user trying to do at that moment in time inside of those applications, and then really filtering down the information to just be what they need at that point in time.
Yeah. So actually, we need to wrap up our interview now, but I think the key thing you're also saying is like you can have these known tools like Outlook or Teams or that people feel familiar with, and have gateways to your data from there by extending those experiences, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, it was great talking to you.
Yes, likewise.
Absolutely nice. And I have after the comment of Christian, where he's doing a selfie while we're doing. That's great.
What? What?
It's
on something.
you never do selfies. That was right. Okay.
I know. It's
As long as I
unheard of.
know this man, he's jumping people doing selfies, and
Yeah,
that's a great thing.
course.
Keep on that work. I do have a suggestion that we could pitch to Microsoft actually.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Last Ignite, and since it's not good if you need to break the bank to get those lags, right? So maybe we could request Microsoft, like for the next Ignite, to get virtual swag for our avatars.
There we go. I know.
So that's like Monopoly money.
That's like, yeah, but it's going to be all like virtual pants that none of us can use, for avatars, none of which have legs. Right. So anyway, it's a problem. We'll discuss.
Over to you guys.
Oh, Michael, do you have anything else you need to throw in there?
Yeah.
We have one content. Hey, Tommy. Hello. That's great. Yeah, actually, people can comment.
They can. And I think that's very important. We spoke about this yesterday as well, is that we'd love to hear your feedback, even if it's just to say that it's nice to see Christian back, because we missed him yesterday when he deserted us, of course. But so give us a shout out there. Even if you have questions, I mean, if I can't answer them, he's going to have to answer them. But if you have questions for us, if you want to...
If it's avatar-related questions, we'll handle those as well.
Absolutely, legs and things like that.
That's right.
Absolutely. So give a shout out, go put a comment there, even if it's just to say hi. It was lovely yesterday. I even had some people from South Africa saying hi and reaching out, which was pretty cool.
Well, it's nice. We do have a couple things before our next interview that we want to show you. One of it is kind of a snippet from an interview with Beatrice, so one of our MVPs and RDs that's here, and also one of the sponsors. So, Michael, why don't we roll that tape?
Probably before the pandemic, we were way more focused around how productive we are rather than how well we are to be productive. And the pandemic kind of actually changed that paradigm, really. We went from looking at productivity as something that is very focused around processes, around tools, exactly as you were saying. And we went from looking at productivity on that perspective to looking at as a whole, like look at the human being as a whole, at our life as a whole, and see us as people, really. So now when we think about how to be productive, we actually have a much broader definition of it and encompass a lot of different things. And not only well-being is part of it, but other things, right? Like inclusivity, for example, which was barely spoken about years ago. And right now is so much a big part of our life. And how do we balance our life with our work life? And how can we actually make it better? And there are lots of tools within Viva, specifically about Viva Insights, I think, that can actually give us a little help on that. We are an animal of habits, but typically we have the worst habits possible. So at work,
I would say that people like water running downhill, like rocks moving away, then the water goes around the rock and continues down the hill. But yeah.
But we tend to, to get to do stuff reoccurrently, like, okay, I feel very productive if I'm doing meetings, meeting after meeting, and it looks like I'm doing a lot of stuff.
Right.
And I don't give myself time for a break, and I don't give my brain time for a break. And we actually so much need that time.
Yeah.
So we sometimes need a little bit of technology to get us back on track. And I think that's where Viva can actually, come handy. Things like making sure that we are having the right breaks at the right time. And now you have you have tools to do it.
Right.
Making sure that you have focus time. Whenever you really need to do that very hard work where you need all your concentration, how do you find time in your schedule to actually focus for a couple hours?
Right.
Or make sure that during a part of your day, no one interrupts you, right? Because you need to get up to speed with what's going on. And if you are being interrupted all the time, you will definitely not be able to be productive.
Well, welcome back. Well, that was, I don't know if you noticed, but it was me doing the interview and that recording.
You didn't leave.
I was there, then I was here, now I'm,
So it's welcome back to me.
It's like magic. Well, welcome, Tracy.
It's like magic, like SharePoint.
Well, one of the things, we have another comment.
What? We do?
Yeah, Michael, what does it say there? It's long.
Wait, can I see it?
Having trouble hearing Tracy. I don't have that problem, so.
Okay, I'll just be louder. Can we
Yes.
see if that's louder? Because South Africans can be louder. I was being polite because I'm in Europe.
Yep. So, be loud. Project.
I've got to
Project that's out
speak with
there. So that's-
authority.
of course.
Thank you for that feedback.
Well, with authority, I'd like to do. Can we look at one more year of pictures of years past? ESPC. Let's look at 2016's. Yeah, so I like those pictures, Tracy, because I was keynoting that event, so I was on the stage.
Oh, wow.
So I like that. So yeah,
That's lovely.
excellent.
Nice.
Well, would you like to introduce our next guest?
No.
Or how about I do that? Anoop, talk with Chris. We'll turn the time over to both of you.
Hello, everyone, and we are here with the one and only Chris O'Brien. Hello, Chris. Welcome to ESPC.
Hi, Anu. Good to see you.
How are you doing?
I am doing great, thanks. How about you?
I'm good too. Thank you very much.
It was funny for me.
Right. For people that do not know you, well, everyone knows you, but for people who do not know you, can you introduce yourself, tell a bit about yourself, what your area of focus is, and where do you work, etc.
Sure. So my name's Chris O'Brien. I'm the Products and Services Director at a company called Content and Cloud in the UK. I lead a team of people that help us innovate and drive forward with new services, try and anticipate where Microsoft is going to be, all of their latest innovation and new drive in Microsoft 365 and Azure. My group of people help us work with that and help our clients get the most of it.
Thank you, Chris, for that. So you've been a regular speaker at ESPC. So ESPC started as a SharePoint conference, but now it's widened. It's become a Microsoft 365 conference. So what's your take on that?
I think that's just how the industry's gone, isn't it? So, SharePoint was an amazing platform that started, back in the late 90s, if you think about where it came from, and Encompass Resolution and the companies that Microsoft acquired. And that kind of period of 2000 to 2010 was really the kind of genesis of us dealing with information in a different way and realizing that just storing files on a file server wasn't good enough. And then as you come through the cloud era, obviously, it needs more than files and document management. So the fact that the event has changed in the same way that the Microsoft stack has, I think it forces us all to learn a bit more and not be in one box. And I think that's really where the fun comes from these days.
Okay, brilliant. And so you've been speaking at this conference as well. Can you let us know what were the topics of your sessions in this conference?
Sure. So the main areas for me were SharePoint, Microsoft Syntex as it is now, and Viva Topics. So really focused on these AI capabilities that are coming into the platform, helping us deal with kind of the accumulation of knowledge and content that's kind of exponential in how we see it today. And both of my sessions are on that kind of new capabilities and understanding where the roadmap's going, also showing some of our real world implementations, sharing some projects, doing some demos on the real life environments that we've got, and really trying to help people understand them more.
Okay, that's brilliant. So, can you give us some information on what's new in Microsoft Syntex and what's new in Viva Topics?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Syntex has changed dramatically. I mean, it started out in the market as SharePoint Syntex maybe 18 months, 2 years ago. And even then it was quite groundbreaking. The concept of Microsoft 365 being able to understand what's in your documents, using AI to perhaps classify documents, extract information from them. And that alone was quite groundbreaking. But really what's come since then is the ability to do so many more things. Automate the creation of documents, automate content governance and compliance, so that we can now not just rely on humans to tag information and apply policies to content, but really benefit from AI and the ability to do that for us.
Right.
So we're coming into a new era. In 2023, we'll see a huge range of new capabilities to Microsoft Syntex. So thinking about annotations and inking on documents, thinking about e-signatures and new ways of doing that don't necessarily require a third-party solution. And then new capabilities in terms of how information can be shared and how AI can work with it.
Okay, that's good. So, you've always been blogging about, every year you blog about some advice for developers. That's what you've been doing in the past. In a similar way, what advice would you like to give for customers who are new to Syntex or new to Viva Topics?
That's an interesting question, because I think what we're getting to is a new direction from Microsoft, where not everything is in the platform, not everything is in the E3 or the E5 license, and we now have all these kind of add-ons and different SKUs that you can add to your Microsoft environment, and that's by design. It shouldn't be that these capabilities are forced on you. There's an increase in the license price. So where you get to is a new way of being, where you need to experiment, you need to run trials, you need to run proof of concepts, and you need to explore these capabilities in your environment to understand if they're going to be valuable to you. And I think that's the case for organizations in general that run their business in Microsoft 365, but also for technologists like us. So us people that work with the platform, that try and help organizations get the most from it, we need to be experimenting a lot more, playing with different bits of the platform, trying to understand where the value comes from, and being ready to help organizations get the most from it.
Okay, that's really good advice. Thanks for that, Chris. And so you've been having interactions with customers on these topics, Viva Topics and Microsoft Syntex. So what kind of questions do you get from the customers, and so that it'll be helpful for anyone else listening to this conversation?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of clients they're just trying to understand these new capabilities. Many are quite early, trying to position them, understand what the capabilities are, and understand where the value comes from and how to go about this investment. Because these are premium capabilities, there's an extra license to buy. Sometimes there's a business case that's needed for that. And many organizations are probably at that stage. So a lot of the questions come from, how do I know that this is going to be valuable for our organization? And that's how we advise them to start small. Start with a POC, start with a trial. Don't just try and make a decision based on marketing materials from Microsoft or information on the website. Get these new capabilities running in your environment, see it with your content, see it with how your business runs, and try and make a decision based on that. So we're seeing a lot of questions like that, and also some that are, does this change how how my people can access information? Does it change the security? Am I at risk that some of our sensitive financial information then becomes visible to everybody? And neither Syntex nor Viva Topics does that. So people can be assured that there's nothing in the technologies that's somehow going to change security or permissions or lead into a risk that they didn't previously have. But certainly quite a lot of the client conversations and the questions I have are in those kind of areas.
Okay, that's brilliant. So, the whole community knows you as a developer when you started your MVP role. Now your focus is on slightly different things. So how has that switch been? And do you still do development?
I'll always be a coder at
Yeah.
heart, I think. And I think if you spent years creating solutions, writing code, then you become hardwired to think that way. Certainly, I'd spent a long part of my career leading development teams, being on the very complex end of technology. But I suppose, we all go through eras of our career, and personally, I kind of moved a little bit more strategic. And I really like the fact that the Microsoft space has so many places to focus on, so many areas to be a specialist in.
Yeah.
So although I only rarely write bits of code now, there's still so much of the Microsoft stack that's of interest. And this era that we're coming into, where AI is kind of changing how the technology works, changing our options, there's so much depth to it. And I think we're just coming into a new phase, and understanding the role of AI, I think it's just super fascinating, and there's so much to absorb yourself in.
That's brilliant. So, for our listeners, how can they get in touch with you? Are you on social media platforms, and do you? And what's your blogs?
Yeah, sure. So some good ways of finding me if ever there's a question I can answer. I have a blog at sharepointnutsandbolts.com. I've been writing there for 15 or 16 years. But also Twitter is a place that I hang out. So Chris_O'Brien is my handle there. And on LinkedIn, you can find me by searching for Chris O'Brien.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you once again, Chris, for your time. And with that, we will hand it back over to Tracy and Christian.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris and Anoop, for that. And
Thank you.
I think we've got a few things that we're going to cover here.
We do.
So, one of the things I did want to talk about is briefly, we talked about it a little bit yesterday about we had the Ask the Experts here. One thing I wanted, besides saying welcoming your comments and questions that we are going to try and address. So thanks to those that have commented already. But even if you're not attending the conference, if you're here looking back at this, or you're watching this stuff virtually happen, you can still go through the catalog of all of the different sessions and reach out on topics that are of interest to you.
Yes.
People that you want to meet, and reach out, find them via social. Sometimes the socials posted their Twitter handle or what have you. Reach out to them and ask the questions, because, hey, these are some of the most connected people in the industry, and they're always happy to hear from you. So don't be shy.
I'd like to add something to that, and I always do that. Is like a lot of times we think it's just me asking, so people would send direct messages. I just want to say something. The South African can say things that other people are afraid to say.
I know that.
Please,
I'm well aware of that.
Please
Tracy.
remember that we don't have one person reaching out on a direct message. There's a lot of them. Where if you ask something in open forums, so if you on Twitter, just CC one of us in on any of the social media platforms, but then other people get to learn from that question as well.
Yep.
And other people can actually jump on and help as well. So direct messages are always tricky when at some point you just can't.
I love
the
whole idea of crowdsourcing the answers to your questions.
I like that.
Because other people, they may have nuances to the question. They may say, I've got a slightly different scenario around that. Or, hey, I may have experienced exactly what you're asking about and have that real world experience. I mean, it's all good stuff.
Absolutely.
So next thing, we have a couple things that we want to show you. I wanted to show another set of memories. This one from 2017. If we could roll that tape. Again, it's always good to show those memories, especially when I didn't know that I was going to be in one of the photos. But
so he says.
It's always good to say. So anyway, so we also have, there's another activity that we want to talk about, which is
how powerful this conference is. The power in powerful conferences, right? Yes. And definitely is one of my favorite conferences for sure. I've always had an incredible time here. The organizing team's incredible, the speakers are incredible, the attendees are the best, okay? But they are also planning something really, really cool in Ireland, which is one of my favorite places.
Which was why it was appropriate to show the 2017 event,
yes,
which was in Dublin.
Dublin. There we go.
Going back to Dublin.
Sorry, I was too quick.
Sorry. Did you want to finish your thoughts on that before we were so rudely
I was
cut over
busy.
to
I was busy
the
talking.
video?
But no, I'm very, very excited about the Power Platform. You saw some great information there. Definitely go out to the website as well for this conference. And yeah, 22nd of June, I'm definitely going to try and be there. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, conference organizers. I would love to be there. But because they allow South Africans in without a visa. And look at them now lock us down after this. They go like, wait, they don't use visas for South Africans, but let's hope it stays that way. I'm allowed to go there without a visa, and I am going 22nd.
You said the quiet part out loud. Now all those, the country's going to just lock it down. It found you've uncovered the loophole. Yeah.
Apparently I have.
So there's one more, before we get to our next interview, there's one more snippet that we want to share. This was an interview that I had with Matthias from Rencor talking, this wasn't me. I talked to him earlier about something. No, this is actually Michael, right? That's right.
This is not about you?
No, it's not about me this time.
What are maybe the three main pain points you find out on your customers?
So one is definitely all that clutter this has created. So a lot of organizations rolled out teams, for example, and didn't really have a plan how to create teams. So they have 50 marketing teams for various projects that might be gone already, and then you have a lot of unused teams with all the resources that come around it, with files in the teams, with SharePoint sites, with planner plans, and so on.
And with licenses, right?
And with licenses on top of it, but getting rid of the clutter and basically enabling the organization to clean things out and delegating that to the organization, that is one of the main pain points. Then, as you already mentioned, costs. Well, especially in these times right now, costs is always a topic. It's licensing costs of, in general, unused licenses within the organization. Enterprises usually buy licenses in packs, like in an enterprise agreement for an amount of users, but they might not utilize those licenses in an optimal way. So they might have maybe users that are currently on extended leave that are still licensed that could reallocate those licenses to somebody else. Or they have over-allocated licenses that a user has multiple or licenses for things that they are not using. So being able to identify these kind of over-usage of license and automatically reallocating or removing those licenses can instantly save you costs. And this is what we see, every customer eventually sees this as a massive benefit, and how they can also convince others in the organization to get such a tool.
So we're back. Okay, we're ready to jump over to Shrag and interview, so we'll let you take it over from here and introduce your guests.
Nice shirt.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris and Tracy. Hi, I'm Chirag. Very quick intro. I'm from the UK, independent consultant and trainer. And I have my guest here, Albert Hoiting from the Netherlands. So welcome, Albert, to the European SharePoint Office 365 conference. And just tell us our views on the attendees. What do you do?
What do I do?
And what do you work in? What areas do you specialize in?
Oh, first of all, thanks for having me. Lovely to be here. Yeah, I'm Albert Hoiting from the Netherlands, as you say. The Netherlands, The Hague to be specific, not Amsterdam. And I'm in Enterprise Mobility MVP, doing a session here at the European SharePoint Conference. I'm very delighted to be here. happy as a little boy.
Good. And what do you think of the conference so far? The sessions
It's-
you may have attended so far?
Well, let's start out with the fact that we have like a conference like this with that amount of people who are here to share their knowledge, their expertise. A lot of attendees who just want to learn, be around people, having fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and especially it's been 3 years, right? Since
Yeah, it
for
has.
some, I think it's been a kind of in person for after 3 years, and kind of being
Exactly,
seeing all the
yeah.
speakers under one roof.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, right?
It is, and you've seen it starting up at the beginning of this year with small scale conferences or user groups. But to be fair, I used to do like sessions the last couple of years only using Teams, for example, and it's okay, and that's one of the reasons I love being an MVP is because I want to share my knowledge and expertise, if you will, and that can be using live streams or whatever.
Yeah.
But it isn't the same as being here in a great environment, lovely city. So yeah, it's
well, I think there's the ability to be able to walk around different parts of the conference, right?
Yeah.
The expo hall, the speakers, ask the experts, and all those areas.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and how did you had a session?
Yeah, we did.
Right.
Yeah.
So, any interesting questions you got from your, and maybe share us, what was
Yeah.
your session about, and, and
sure.
what kind of questions you got.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I probably have to explain a little bit about what I'm doing right now.
Please
Because,
do.
I'm an MVP working mostly on information governance, information security, or compliance, risk, and security, basically. Which means I have a very, at least myself, I have a very broad attention span. So my session was with Daniel Laskowicz from Microsoft on the Power Platform. And that probably not that easy to get that into a compliance sphere.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Power Platform itself, it also has things like data policies, DOP, environments, keeping it compliant, keeping it manageable. So that was basically what our session was about.
Great.
And we already did that session like pre-COVID, a couple of years before that, and then we called it the admin versus the business expert or the maker. And well, as the platform has evolved over the years, we now call it the business expert and the admin working together.
Right.
So, and it was a great session. I really do love doing like those duo sessions. And well, coming back to your question, there was one very, very relevant question which triggered me to again look into the Microsoft information, because one of the attendees came up to me and he said, well, this is fair, all the DOP and all the environment, and that's all cool stuff. But let's say you have information protection, and that's another part of the Microsoft portfolio I'm really into. And he was like, let's say you have a use case, you have sensitive information that's classified, that's labeled, etc. But then you use the Power Platform, and then you can still access it,
Yes.
and you can still use that to get to that classified information.
Yeah,
And
I think we have a comment as well, so
we
I
have
think
a
we can
comment.
probably grab a comment from there. So we have a SharePoint is still used more at sorry, I'm just get to my right into that. DMS and archiving are still not great. Okay, well that's been going on for 20 years, right? Depending on your journey, but there are better products available nowadays. So fair comment, yes. Other
Yeah.
features are Otisify Teams, Stream, so various workloads and flow is evolving. So what do you think to that?
Well, I think the comment does have its merits. I mean, if you look at how SharePoint evolved as a DMS and a RMS, record management system, it got a lot of catching up to do as we look at things like a FileNet or any other real, if you want to call it like that, a DMS.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I think it has caught up with a lot of those vendors, right? Sure, there are still features within SharePoint which don't compare or don't really offer the same functionality as a more traditional
And
DMS.
I think it's also fair to say that I think when SharePoint, the way it's been evolved, it was never meant to do everything, right? There's always that marketplace for the partners to participate, bring their expertise and develop those products. But you're right, I think the demand is always there to try and have everything in the one sort of platform.
Yeah. Well, you do see that SharePoint as a platform itself, it's evolving. Like I said, it's really more like a content management solution right now.
So sorry to interrupt. So I think
no
a nice comment from Bhaskar Maltra there. O365 Azure on the whole is still fun, which is great.
Hope so.
and I'm hoping that you also are experimenting, even though it's a production environment, because this is how you get to leverage the whole platform and the services, right?
Yeah. Well,
without breaking things.
Yeah, if you really want to learn more about the platform, go to Microsoft, create a demo environment or whatever. There's tons of trial environments you can create, and you get like 90 days E5 trial licenses. Start using them. Especially if you want to look at things like Microsoft Purview, like data lifecycle management, information protection, auto classification. Well, you name it, it's in there. And if you really want to enhance your knowledge of those, create environments like that and just work with them. Don't only trust on your theoretical knowledge of the subject or Microsoft Learn, which is great, by the way, but having hands-on experience with the platforms, that's a must-have. So that's one of the things I do as well.
Very quick one. How do you keep up to date with all the developments? And I appreciate you, as you mentioned, that you play with the demos, learn about the product and the services. But in general, with the rate of change that we're all experiencing, how do you keep up to date? And as well as in the busy day-to-day life as a consultant.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult. I think working as a consultant, I have to be up to date as well, because there's some of the enhancements might solve a problem with my clients, for example. So I need to know if there's any enhancement or new functionality coming out. To be fair, as an MVP, we both know that we do have some NDA information, so we got little snippets of information which we can't share, but we know what's coming.
Of course, yes, we have to respect that.
And we respect that, of course. It's difficult sometimes, but we do. But there's still the publicly available information, like the Microsoft 365 roadmap. Twitter is still, I must say, a very big place for information.
I use it all the time, and that's where most of my learning comes from too. And being able to then just dive into those deep articles or videos.
And to be very fair, you learn from sessions here at the conference as well. For example, of going to user groups, talking to colleagues, seeing that having peers which you interact with, and they might have seen something new. And to be really blunt about this, you can't really know everything, so don't try to do that, because then you probably
That's a good tip. You're right. We often feel under pressure, don't we, that we have to know everything and have the answers available. So
and you can't.
Okay, well, look, I think we're gonna sort of wrap up, but just very quick one. I think for those of you, for those of these attendees who wants to then go into the MVP journey on that, very quickly, what would be your 3 words that would help them to get to that? Obviously, there's no guaranteed results on that, but it's all about sharing in the community, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. And just limiting me to only 3 words, that's going to be a problem, knowing me.
No pressure, right?
But be enthusiastic, want to share. I think that's, for me, that was my starting point on the journey. Doing presentations, writing a blog, not having the MVP stuff in mind, but really being part of that community, and then the ball started rolling once I got that nomination. But it's not it's not like a certification or something. You earn it because you really contribute to the community, and I love doing that. So
it's a passion as well.
It's a passion. Yeah, that's the right word.
It's what drives us.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Absolutely. Well, I think with that, thank you very much, Albert. And,
thank you.
And enjoy the conference.
I will. I'm still doing it.
ESPC 22 rocks.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thanks, Albert. Thanks for doing that for us. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And you're sticking.
I couldn't read, so because I could see the shoulder, right?
There's a lot that's going on behind the scenes, in between, as things are going on in coordination.
A lot of stuff.
But you're sticking around for the panel in another 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. Well, he is now.
that was the intent, was the peer pressure.
Because we focus on agile technology, people, so you need to stay agile.
It's an iterative process.
Things happen.
Like, who's still around? Who has a pulse? That kind of
and
stuff,
you're up next.
Right.
Like that.
partial pulse there. So
Absolutely.
well, there are a couple things that we want to talk about here. One thing just to be watching for. So on the ESPC 22 on the LinkedIn and YouTube, so there will be more excerpts. So there's a lot of recordings. Of course, we have these that we're live streaming that Michael's in charge of. We also have recordings that ESPC the event is put on. So all that content is going to be going live over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Make sure you follow the ESPC channel.
Absolutely. So talking about how old Christian is.
Oh, yes.
But he mentioned yesterday that he's been at every one of these conferences.
I have.
11 years. That's incredible.
Right.
That's really incredible. But that, as I mentioned back then, I'm too young because 11 years ago, I didn't even have a driver's license yet. But I obviously attended my first conference here as a speaker in 2018. So 2018, 2019, then of course we had a bit of a leap year. And then this year. So I would like to take a look at some of the photos of 2018.
2018. Let's take a look. It's a good memory. Yeah, so we're back here at the same location, so it's fun to be back in the fishbowl. We should also share like this space. Maybe we should do this more at the end, Michael. Do you want to cover, or do you want to show it now? Do you want to do your walk around camera and show some of the setup here?
What? It was a camera that took photos of a lot of stuff happening while we were just standing around.
We're going to show it at the end.
We're back.
Yeah, we're back. Yeah, so one other thing I just also like to share is that like how serious I am about the community playing. So she's mocking me for this. It's like, I just want to, I want to do this. Not that my wife is going to be watching, but that today is my 32nd wedding anniversary.
That is
and I'm on the other side of the planet.
I think that's he's hologram because we only hologram Jen, obviously, but he doesn't know that. So please be polite about that. He doesn't know that.
I just wanted to. It's like I sent my wife a text.
That's nice.
It's a little more meaningful to over the live stream to acknowledge that she's put up with me for 32 years.
Absolutely. Give us some comments on the live stream. Give us some stars and hearts and things to just say sorry and thank you to Christian's wife.
Yes, there. Well, with that, we'll turn over. So we were lucky to have a couple of our folks, fellow speakers and MVPs, to step in and talk about, I'm thinking, Viva.
Absolutely.
All right. Nice. Over to you.
Thank you. So my name is Ståle Hansen. I'm an MVP. I work at a company called Cloudway. I'm a CEO there. I'm a principal cloud architect, and I'm also a Microsoft regional director. So, which means that I'm like enthusiastic about Microsoft 365. I've been so for over 11 years. And I'm also joined here by Leslie. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Ståle. Well, first of all, this is my CEO. So he's absolutely marvellous, and he's the most empathic leader I've ever met in my whole career.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I can really, truly say that. So I've been at Cloudway now for just around about a year. And what Ståle encouraged me to do a year ago was to create my own blog. So I know that probably sounds a bit weird because I'm also now an MVP of 7 years, Tracy, which I can't quite believe because I've met you at the beginning of all this journey at Ignite, I think, 7 years ago. But my background is internal communications, and you don't tend to have kind of comms people. They write, but they're professional writers, but they don't kind of have their own blogs. But by the time I joined Cloudway, I'd been kind of studying Viva for a couple of months, and I had all this knowledge about the 4 modules of Viva, and I decided to set myself a challenge, which Ståle encouraged me to do, was to do the 12 days of Viva leading up to Christmas. So before I realised it, I've now written a year later about 35, 40 blogs, which, Tracy, I know that's kind of like you did, what was it, 2 years of blogging every day. I'm not particularly keen to go down that route, so it was like
12 is a lot
yeah,
as well.
yeah. So it was fine to do like 12 days of Viva, but of course I needed to name my blog, so I called it the Viva Visionary. I'm a Gemini, and Geminis can tend to be quite visionary and, you know, chit-chatter a lot and good networkers and connectors and everything. So I called myself a Viva Visionary. A year now ahead, we are the Viva Explorers, hence the branding on my hat. And we are 60 plus MVPs from around the world, including Stoller.
Yeah.
And we are in 16 countries. And so it is now a program. It's not a program, it's a movement for MVPs that love Viva. But equally, we say that it's MVPs only because we're having discussions on under NDA so that we can talk quite freely. But we do have friends of Viva Explorers, and that's anyone really that is keen to talk about Viva.
Yeah, and I also think it's very interesting. Just came off the stage talking about 9 conversation starters for Viva.
Yep.
And I think that's very important to like understand the scenarios for Viva, what it is, and then dive really deep into the technology. And this has been the first conference I've been to, ESPC, where we have a lot of Viva sessions. We have some really deep dives, and we also have some introductory sessions. So Viva is now happening in the community space, in the market as well. I do believe that a lot of organizations are investigating, like, what can we do with Viva, trying to understand where does Viva fit in for us. And I just want to mention that we had the session we just had. Someone came up to us and asked, like, what do you think about Viva moving forward? Will we have like will it replace Microsoft 365, or what's going on? And then it's so important to understand that Viva is Microsoft 365 version next, really. It is, you have the platform, you have the secure platform with Teams, you have Exchange, you have Yammer, you have SharePoint. That's the products where you store your information. And then you have secure identity, strong authentication, and then you have the compliance. That's in Microsoft 365. Viva is on top of that, and which means that you are able to utilize what you already have. But now we are more into succeeding with the technology, not just having access to it. And that's exactly what Viva does. And we created a simple way, actually, to explain this. So Leslie, let's talk a bit about this origami Viva fortune teller that you created.
So what I've tried to do was have the analogy of explaining Viva to a teenager schooled on Teams during the pandemic. So they've got an idea of what They've got an idea of what Teams is. You know, you can have meetings, you can chat, it gets recorded, but what else does it do? And so many organisations, that's all they think it do. They still think it's Skype.
Yeah.
And that's it. But there is so much more that under the hood that you can do through Teams. So on the 22nd of September, Microsoft released this baby here.
The framework for Viva.
We think it's called the Unifying Framework. For Viva.
Yeah.
How many modules do we think are in here?
I don't know. It's like super complex to understand, though. It's
right.
Like,
so officially, there's 9 modules, but you could say is Microsoft Places in there. You could say, you could think is the Microsoft supply chain that was also announced. Microsoft supply chain platform. You know,
and all the features we don't know about yet.
There's so much else rocking and rolling around. So I wanted to try and have something that was making the complex simple. And first of all, I thought about it using a Rubik Cube, which is another analogy in a blog, but I've moved on from there.
I didn't get that one.
You didn't get that one. So then I went on to origami.
Yeah.
So have you got the?
I have the origami
this
here.
This one you made earlier.
Yeah. So what I find fascinating about this, and we've actually built our talk around this, is that you have a couple of conversation starters right here, which is enable growth, and you can even use it as an actual fortune teller.
Yeah.
So you have the different words. It's like 4 topics. So let's sum them up. It's enable growth, discover insights, have purpose, and nurture connections.
Yeah.
And what happens then if you look under those, right?
Okay, which one would you like to pick up?
I will pick purpose. I think that one is very important these days.
Okay, so
And also a fun fact from our session today, 73% of employees think that they need something more than just expectation of the workplace to have them come to work. They need purpose. And that was from the Workplace Index research that Microsoft did. So 73 people after the pandemic need something more.
Yeah.
So what can we do with that in Viva?
Okay, so the essence of this as well. Oh, sorry. The essence of this as well. I need a third hand. Is that this is like Teams. It's in the palm of your hand. It's secure. It's compliant, and it's being governed.
Yeah.
If you think about the creases in the origami, that's your Teams channels. Okay, so you selected have purpose.
Have purpose. That's
yeah.
one
So
I
if I
wanted.
unfold, I've got here Viva goals.
Okay.
So do you want to tell us more about Viva goals?
Yeah. So
And
from
having purpose.
for purpose, Viva Goals is about objectives and key results. And objectives and key results is not something Microsoft invented. That's something startups are very passionate about, leaders are passionate about that, and we see more and more larger organizations adopt that kind of thinking. Viva Goals is a tool to help you execute on that. On an organizational level, on a departmental level, but also most importantly, on an individual level.
Would you like to pick another one?
So what happens then if you go further down below Viva Goals?
So below Viva goals, oops. So you've got platform and admin services.
All right, so that's what it builds on, right?
Yeah.
It builds on the Microsoft 365 platform, and it has to be managed and secure.
Yeah. So let's have a look at Nurture Connections.
Nurture connections. Let's look at
that's kind
that.
of like the broadest theme.
Yeah, that's your favorite.
Yeah, that's
So-
personally my favorite. So under Nurture Connections, we find Viva Connections, SharePoint Online.
Okay,
and
because
then
and the reason for that is because
of to enabling communications to through your intranet for frontline workers.
absolutely,
Yeah,
and we
from
had
any
this
device.
question: does Viva Connection replace your intranet? And the answer is no. It will amplify your intranet,
Yeah.
which brings us over to the other tool available in Viva under Connections.
Yeah, so we have Viva Engage, which is Yammer.
Yammer.
This umbrella.
This
umbrella I was given by a swag by the Yammer team in the Shoreditch office in London 8 years ago, and it's still weathered the storm, and it's still going strong.
Yeah.
So we've got Viva Engage.
And the very short version of Viva Engage is that you can build your personal brand within the organization by using stories.
Yeah, so
and post your knowledge in communities.
Yeah, so really Yammer is just, Viva Engage is just Yammer with a bit more superpowers.
Yeah.
And you can reach it
And now-
through,
you can do reels and stuff. You don't have to be a leader. You can be a leading person.
Yeah.
Or a very knowledgeable person and post your stuff within the organization. That's kind of a big deal for larger organizations.
But you can still use Yammer, the app. We're waiting to find out, will it get rebranded completely? That probably will take quite a long time to be decided. We don't know. But it's just that simplicity of, it's making that complex with all these different apps that companies use, like WhatsApp and Slack and everything. It's giving the opportunity to just have one app called Teams, and you can get everything you need there for a great employee, for improving the employee experience.
All right. So we're getting the sign here that we should have wrapped up by now. So to sum it up, for Viva, you're looking at growth,
4 themes,
connections, and purpose, and insights. And then you can dive further and further down what we're seeing at this conference. That's happening right now. Understand the scenario where it's in your organization, and then dive into how you can manage it, admin it, have governance around it. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's great to go through, and I think one of the benefits of coming to an event like that, we can read about the new Viva experiences, but to get real world examples of here's what you're doing is you're
Yes.
talking with customers. Here's what we've done internally when we've deployed this. This is what we saw. Here's the benefits of that. That's the things that it's difficult to get those even from online virtual events and having those real world conversations. So always appreciate that.
So that's Viva there for your back pocket.
Yeah, that's a great resource.
I just wanted to mention for all our viewers out there that was worried about the opening of the umbrella. There is no roof above this fishbowl,
It was-
so it was technically
It was
completely
perfectly safe.
okay.
It was safe.
It was totally safe.
It was
Yeah,
practiced dozens of times by professionals.
No one was hurt
It was completely
during the umbrella.
Without a hairnet.
That's right.
We rehearsed and rehearsed.
No,
We
no
have
animals were hurt
hurt
or
in this
injured
process.
at all
Not
during
at all.
that
Not
test,
at all.
so it's fantastic.
And
So-
no wrong hashtags were used either.
No,
Yes.
never the wrong
Ever.
hashtags, ever. So, well, with that, so we have one more memory lane, trip down memory lane, talking about 2019. So the last one before we went into the dark years of the pandemic. Just talking about
And
all
we're
the
back.
things that we're not going to cover here, but as we set
Not
up,
at all.
well, we're going to move over to the panel
Well,
now.
before we do
Oh,
that,
what?
I think there's something really important that I wanted to share with you, Christian, because what's interesting is I was wondering whether you compiled those PowerPoints of the years, because interestingly enough, I did not see myself in any of those recaps,
No,
but you featured
I did not
everywhere.
compile those. Michael did that. I only had
I'm
editing control
pretty-
over what could be seen. No, I had no view over that. It was
that is just, it's per chance.
Were you really
Per
here at any of those events? No. So actually, the last one you were on there. So the last one here, 2018, because it showed
2019.
2018 when
Yeah.
we were here in Copenhagen. Prague was 2019.
Yes.
2018, you were in that because it had one of us as the panel. We're sitting there as community reporters interviewing. So
But you cropped me off the picture. Is that?
I didn't touch it. What? Why am I being blamed for this? I had nothing to do with those. I am a passenger on the bus. I'm not driving the bus.
Apparently not.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
well,
So what's happening up next then?
So we're going to do a panel, right? Welcome, Knut.
Thank you.
Trot. Hello, Tracy.
Hello.
Michael.
I'm here.
We're all
There
here.
you are. Hello.
Doing well.
Fantastic.
What do we want to talk about? What are your takeaways so far?
Well, I mean, I attended a couple of sessions today.
Oh, tell us.
Brian, topics, particularly their experience after 18 months. And yeah, really, it's like really lots to take away from it. Not just switch it on and just start using and blow away all the SharePoints, but selectively find out. So yeah, that was a great one.
Isn't it interesting how it's never the good advice to just turn them things on and sit back and see what happens?
So many times, yes.
Like,
You don't do that?
It never works out. No,
But-
people do it all the time.
But why is it always on by default then? Why the switch is on by default instead of off, and you can choose to turn it on?
Yeah. Well, that's why it's just good though to go in to understand what the stuff is, and to be able to look at it before the rest of the organization sees it, so you're better prepared. At least you're prepared for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, for me, it's like to be part of a conference like the ESPC again. It's amazing. It's like been too long since I was here. Like 3 long years since Prague, and then finally to be back in Copenhagen. Like 4 years after it was previously in Copenhagen, the same venue as this one. So it's just amazing to finally be at the real live conference where people are not scared of you. Because previously I don't know the conference, people were scared. Like when you come to say hi, they took like one step back.
That's right.
So it's like amazing.
Wait a minute.
Well,
I
now
have
if they're
that.
afraid of you, it's different reasons that they're afraid of you.
But I always have that. So that only sometimes happens to you.
That's one of the hardest things. We've talked about it too, where we're encouraging people to ask questions on the interface. One of the hardest things is to encourage people to forget the fear and ask the questions, to introduce yourself to the speakers, to the MVPs. And it's like we're waiting for that. We want that. We want the interaction.
Yes.
And I realize it's scary to go talk to somebody new.
It is. I mean, I think one of the things I can probably share on that, but I mean, usually even before coming to any events, I always try and broadcast it to say, stop any MVPs or anybody and ask a question. Don't let them walk past you.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you're walking around, I just go and grab some people. How are you finding it? What are you working on? Hopefully, they get opened up, right, with that kind of dialogue, and they start asking questions. So it kind of works in some cases, but yeah, you're right. It's a huge environment. People feel vulnerable.
I think people are a little bit over intimidated, like, all these MVPs from their blog posts, from their YouTube channels and so on, like just take my good friend Vlad as an example, he's like an intimidating guy in some ways, and he has so much knowledge. So you're also a little bit scared to
Vlad is one of the most approachable people.
He is.
If you don't know Vlad Katrinescu, like you see him you see his content, all of his sessions, his guidance, he is one of the friendliest, happy guys.
Yeah, he is. But if you don't know him, it's like, and also you, Christian, and you, Tracy, and myself, if you don't know the people behind, we are just normal persons, we are friendly, we are just like them, we like to have a chat. We are probably scared as well, because I'm scared if a attendee comes up towards me and maybe they're going to ask me a question I cannot answer.
Right.
And that's pretty intimidating as well. So I think everyone should just learn, just ask the question.
Yes.
The worst thing that can happen is I don't have an answer, but I will refer to somebody else.
Yeah.
I think on that, I always tell my students and my clients, I always say, first up, put a disclaimer in there because that takes the pressure off. I open up any session by saying, I don't know everything, but I know everyone who does. So you've already laid it down there. There's no failing past that. If I don't have the answer, I'll reach out to someone that does, which I think is the important thing. I'm just going back to what you just said there. I'm still intimidated by you, even though I know you now. So I don't know if that's not a thing. Okay, great. So, but anyway, so it's true, you have to speak up to people, you have to ask the questions. And I think also, people tend to say that, oh, this is going to be a stupid question. I'm like, the only question that's stupid is when it's not asked. I think that's the thing.
There are some legitimately stupid questions. Well, let's be honest. No,
not from my clients. Not from my clients. But I think what you have, yes, what you have to remember as well is that, so don't ask the question for you, ask it for the people around you, because you might have the courage to stand up and ask the question, but you're actually having something answered for 20 other people that was afraid to stand up. So that's always a big thing for me, is to have the courage for someone else.
Yeah,
I was going to add in that there is an answer to every question out there.
It's 42.
It depends.
42.
Yes. Yeah.
42.
Which is, or 42.
Or 42.
Yeah, it depends.
In the SharePoint world, it depends.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah, soon.
Soon's also good.
That feature. Or that's
good.
good feedback. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Okay, great. So cool. So I want to ask something about being here as well. This is my first one. I said this yesterday as well. First in-person conference in 3 years. And a lot of us changed in 3 years. A lot of things happened in our lives. Our family lives changed. The way we work changed. The way we see the world. What's important to us. Out of between the three of you, preferably the two of you. Kidding. No, yes. Okay. But what would you say from the conference? Is there something different? Are you experiencing something that's different, which you think is now because of what's happened to us in the last 3 years? Are people different? Is there things that we focus on different? What would you think?
I think, well, from my point of view, I think it's the settlement period of it. I mean, I think I've been fortunate enough to attend few events over the last 2 years. So in a way, I feel special as if we've gone back to the way it was.
Yes.
But for a lot of the people, because it's after 3 years, like you say, lots has happened. The way you interact has changed. So coming back to the conference after 3 years, certainly I think that's kind of a bit of a barrier to say, how do I ask a question? How do I, how do I even get myself energized to maintain the whole day of attending sessions, right? I think some of that, I think, is a bit challenging, I think, for some people. Concentration spans or what have you. But it's a start, right?
Yeah.
To go to many events from here.
Yeah, and there's few things that the virtual reality or the metaverse or how to call it cannot replace, you know. I'm still waiting for that bodysuit, you know, so that when you go to the metaverse that you can actually feel how people will hug you. Because without that, for me, the conference is not the same. You know,
You're right.
I'm a person that needs to give people a hug, and I want a hug. You know, so for me, when I did another conference, I did like another conference like last year, you know, and then people did not take the hugs. They were still wearing the masks and all that kind of stuff, you know. So that was the most weird conference I've attended, you know, like wearing the COVID mask and people being scared of being close to you and all that kind of stuff because you was there, but at the same time you was not there. So for me, the community, this kind of conferences is about meeting all of the MVP friends, you know, like that's a big part of it, like the extended family, as I like to call all of you, you know, like my kids are asking, Dad, do you have any friends? I'm saying, I have my MVP friends, is what I'm saying. It's like they are my extended family because I don't have time for other friends because I'm always traveling and doing my community work. So for me, it's like crucial, this kind of events to be part of that because and it continues and to get back to normal, you know, because I was so fed up with the way we worked for 3 years, you know, like we had the Teams meetings and everybody was dressed up from the bottom, from here and up, and everything else nobody knew what everyone was wearing.
I have a sticker, the work from home sticker over there.
Yeah.
That shows a guy sitting at his computer. He's wearing his boxers below the table. It says pants optional.
Yeah, exactly. So I was so fed up with that because I drive from energy from other people, you know, like how we was managing to actually do all that community work when we didn't see the people we spoke to at all. We didn't feel emotions. We didn't see if they liked what we talked about and all that kind of stuff. So yes, we have changed, but I'm also extremely happy now to see that things also starting to get back to normal because I think I value this now even more than I ever did before.
One thing I would say that, so I've done a few events. I think from the middle of last year, this is my 8th or 9th event. Now, for a lot of us, I mean, we were doing 1 or 2 or 3 events a month for years. Most of the last decade was like that. So to go to stop and then it's slowly starting up. One thing I've recognized is that there's so much more empathy for the people that are still fearful of and or have other health issues and so are still masked up. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do. You do you, we'll do us kind of things.
Yeah.
Like, but don't remove yourself from like find ways to participate in the community. Right.
Yes. I think from my side, definitely what happened, because there's positives and everything, okay, and I saw that happen over the last, is that being human is normalized. It really became
I've been human all my life.
I would not call that human.
Yeah, but just as an example of that, you know, like it's kind of like a paradox, you know, because looking from the boss perspective, you know, like with Teams meetings, you know, everybody was used to the boss wearing the costumes and the suits and dressing up and all that kind of stuff. But during the COVID time, you know, like the boss suddenly became like a normal human being, you know, like because the kids was running behind in the Teams calls and you saw that, yes, the boss also is a human, you know, so that's kind of totally different than what was expected otherwise.
So sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say very quickly, I think the other thing that's more impactful as well is the fact that all the learning, especially, you know, online learning and for the last 3 years, coming here to attend those in-person sessions, that learning absorption is huge. To be able to absorb all that content, I think that's a big plus from that. So
I think something that if I look at the conference, I've had a couple of really good conversations with friends that I've had for years that's shared with me how things got better for them in certain ways because of COVID and because of what happened, how we grew closer to everyone as people or something. But something I've specifically seen here is that the gap between speaker and attendees becomes smaller for me, where it was always a little bit more, attendees are a little bit more afraid to just reach up to a speaker, and it's like that's become closer for me. They were much more comfortable just grabbing me on the way past, saying, Trace, what? Before, I feel people were a bit more resistant to just reach out.
It is more casual. And I was going to bring up that point too, is that it's, so I remember years ago where I had a technical difficulty on a webinar. I remember that an attendee for a webinar, a free webinar, was furious and called up like my company to complain about my power went out. It was nothing I did. The power went out. You know, it was in the winter. The power went out, and there was no empathy. There was for that. It was very kind of harsh.
Yes.
And now having gone through this shared experience where you're sitting on camera and somebody's cat walks in front of their camera, or a child comes in crying or something, and they're eating. They're like, I'm turning off the camera while I finish my lunch, and they come back on camera to answer a question with their plate of food. I mean, different things where we have softened our approach. We've become more casual, and it's a good thing. So when you talk about people being more comfortable to reach up, it's because, again, we've shared this experience, and some things that are no longer important. Like, I don't need to be wearing a tie into the office. I don't ever go in the office. I work remote. It's like, but we can have more casual conversations with people, and it's okay.
I think I do also think, because I think for us community advocates, right, we find things to share very easily.
Yes.
In fact, to an extent, we share everything on the planet, right?
We share too much, yes. That's what I'm told.
And I think
oversharing,
right, for the folks who don't share too much because they don't know what to ask. And I think it's that barrier that needs to be lifted in order to make more success out of what they come here for the event to learn all these things. So yeah, definitely sharing helps. It's only how you collaborate, right, and all those things. So that really helps.
Sharing is caring. That's what they say.
Hashtag.
I heard that.
It's the appropriate hashtag. See, I'm using the legitimate hashtag. Community rocks.
You have to say hashtag before it was not searchable.
Hashtag community rocks.
Anyway, but yeah, I think that's all pretty cool. I think as well, and I mean, I think that changed over the last couple of years. So, I mean, we all know that even though I do focus on the technical stuff, I normally have those tough discussions about what people are doing wrong, adoption, change management. And like my session yesterday, at some point, the room just kept on filling up, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong room. Is this supposed to be one of those fancy, it's supposed to be Christian's session? You know, I'm like, I'm in the wrong room, okay? Because I was just blown away with how many people were there, but for a topic that's difficult to discuss, that previously, it's like governance or security, normally gets smaller crowds, but it's people that are very serious about it, and it's now, I definitely see the world also focusing on not just the tech. They're starting to say, yes, we need the tech, but we need some of that stuff that we have to fix. And I saw that in my session yesterday.
I often make that comment about, like, 10 years ago, going to SharePoint Saturday events and other events, they were very technical. It was IT pro and heavy dev focused. And not that content is gone away, but what's happened now is we're concerned less and less with keeping the servers up and running. The majority of us, more business solution focused people, that the conversation has turned, and I'd say the majority of the audience has turned to users of the technology rather than maintainers of the creators of the technology. And so that's why you have, I mean, Viva is so important. It's the timing was, coming out of the pandemic, for organizations to start to look at, are people adopting? Are they engaging, using the technology? And if they're using the technology, how can we get more out of it? Doing more with less. How can we get people to utilize the full features of? Are they aware of the capabilities? Why does this business unit, this team, why are they succeeding? What are they doing so well? They seem highly engaged. They're more productive. The output is more. All of those things, compared to a similar team in another geography, another office, or another location, what's the differences? And now starting to look at that, looking at the data, the analytics behind that, and trying to say, how do we replicate this? How do we do more of what's working and do less of what's not? And that's what Viva is focused on, and that's what so many topics that you see at these conferences now are focused on.
Yeah, and I do think, especially around the Microsoft Viva part, right, I think there's a lot of focus on the tech and everything else, but the underlying service is the employee experience. And I think often that's overlooked slightly because all the focus, attention goes into how to configure modules.
And the product.
How to stop emails going out. Insights that are just emails, all those things. But that's not the focus point. It's making the life easier for the users. And therefore, going back to what you said, Christian, is not focus on the servers, but on the services of different types, not just at the technical level, but business level too.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting space. There's a lot to talk about around that. It's hard conversations sometimes too. To go in and, I mean, it's easy. So I did my session on preparing for Microsoft Viva, and so much of it was around the soft topics around planning for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It's like, look, there are switches, there are features. You turn things on or off. You plug them in. They do certain things or not. There's the technical guidance on that. The hard part is then sitting down with the team. It's like, all right, here's what the product actually does.
Yeah.
How does this fit with the culture of our organization? How are we actually going to leverage this? What's the right way to leverage it? How do we audit and measure to make sure that we're doing it, that we're successful, that it's providing the value that we believe it will be providing?
Yeah.
So those conversations are hard. Those are the people and the process conversations. The technology is easy.
Yeah. If we talk about Viva, and I mean anything in Microsoft 365, right? So I think a big mistake that companies make is that they buy a product to fix something. And I always say products don't fix problems. People fix problems with products. So they go and say, oh, that's right. I mean, we all came from the Yammer environment where Yammer was bought to fix communication problems in companies. And I'm like, yeah, it's not going to do that. It's just going to make it more visible now that there's a communication problem and it's going to cost you money, you know?
Right.
So I think everyone needs to know that is incredible tools, but we need people that can be focused on that in companies. It's not going to run on its own. It's not going to do magic on its own. You need to have people that also focuses on some of these.
Sometimes it does magic on its own, though.
Oh, sure.
That's called AI. I'm surprised you didn't know that, Tracy.
This was to an extent during the pandemic, right? We went the other way around. We grabbed Microsoft Teams, right?
Yeah.
And then let's just switch it on. Let's connect together. So that in that scenario, business requirements was just not done.
No one told me there's magic happening. What?
But this is kind of what typically happens when it is crises around the world. It doesn't matter what type of crisis it is. People makes systems evolve. We find ways around it.
Yes,
you know?
Of course they do.
Like what Microsoft did with Microsoft Teams, you know, and now with Yammer that has become Viva Engage, and then with Viva Stories and storylines and all that kind of stuff, you know, like it's again people that drives this, you know, it's these things that drives everything. So yeah.
Definitely.
So we are not redundant yet. So
Not yet.
Not yet.
We've got 2-3 years.
Yeah.
We have to navigate the journey.
Before we get like the metaverse.
Wait until my bank hears that.
And all get the avatars with Teams and everything, you know.
I'm not doing no avatars, people. I want to see you in person. I'm serious. I want to see you in person. That's not going to happen to me.
Yeah, if I want to play a video game, I'll play a video game kind of thing, yes.
I suppose.
It's the resistance, right?
Yeah.
We haven't seen it. We don't know what it feels like.
The resistance.
Use the force.
I go back to the point around like Second Life. For those of you who haven't come across or not, 20 years ago, there was that concept around Second Life, and I think it's almost like going back. But obviously, the technologies have matured.
Yeah.
You know, there are better platforms, better performance, and everything else. So
Yeah.
in a way, the time is there, but at the same time, you have to support that in hybrid working environments. And let's face it, like the common one is seeing the bubbles, right? When you attend these meetings, how are we going to fix that?
Yeah.
Are those creative animations?
Yeah, so in like 50 years, it will be not us standing here, but our avatars instead, yes?
Well, so I look at it this way. It's like, remember
No,
a
it's
few
not.
years back, I always bring up this example. You've heard me talk about when Microsoft released Gig Jam. Remember Gig Jam? And we saw this. This was a pure Microsoft R&D product. It was, the demos for it were fantastic on stage. There was, I believe they were redesigning virtually a motorcycle on stage. And so we were looking at the screen, and so there were designers that were remote, and they were working on different components, but they also said they wanted to talk about sensitive information with somebody who was not on the leadership team, so they were able to highlight information within their, and so this was it was a presentation.
Yes.
There wasn't a real product around it.
Yes.
There was an app and things around that. But there's all these different components of being able to pull people in and only give them access, permissions to the specific information that we need to collaborate in that real time. As soon as you were done with it, it's updated. You know, they went away. So what's interesting, you look at that now, and we have loop components.
That's it.
We have all the virtual capabilities.
Yes.
We've got the avatar. We've got some of the augmented reality and virtual reality capabilities. So that was something that was future looking. Microsoft also used to do the future of meetings. They did this like 6, 7, 8 years ago, where they had on stage this meeting room and setup where you're able to see, like, we have almost all of that now.
Yeah.
And it's other things that are on the roadmap to get like it's talking about mesh and avatars and kind of all of the VR capabilities, and we're looking at it now through the lens of understanding, and we're saying, I don't get a large part of it. It's very future looking. It's like, but it's going to change rapidly and start bringing experiences that are going to be more inclusive, more, for around the world, different experiences, so that we can do more together in the ways that each of us are comfortable.
The key is to adapt, isn't it?
Yep.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
It's not to like take it on and say this is another big thing or
But
add-ons.
But it's okay if we don't get it all right now.
Well, thanks for bringing us in the loop and just keeping us in. But yeah, I think what we have to realize as well is, and specifically Christian, because he's getting quite old, but it's that you have to realize walking around this conference, we've been around them, most of us, I mean, it's been longer as well, but I've kind of been part of the circuit now for about 10 years, right? Is there's a much younger generation that's coming to the conference because we still think we're all the same age, and it's not. They're looking at us old people in IT and going, oh, wow, no, they're still doing IT, and we think we are up to date and we're thinking, and like proactive and we're modern and stuff, but we've already moved where we're older and don't quite adopt the way.
My son tells me a lot. I think I'm being a gamer like many of the young folks. It's like when I talk about the avatars, it's like, Dad, this has been around for a few years.
And we're supposed to be ahead of the curve, by the way.
Let's say, remember, a lot of this stuff we talk about Second Life, but there's a lot of these pieces that have been around for a long time.
Exactly.
But not in the enterprise. That's what's different. And it's the business application. It's going to change a lot of people's minds. It's going to move more quickly. We're just scratching the surface right now of what it's going to be like.
But that was a change that had to happen in the enterprises to allow for that to happen, because looking back, that was not possible, but now we're getting there slowly.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that kind of brings us to the end.
Yeah, we're kind of at the end. Are we wrapping up now, Michael? Or do we have any final parting thoughts from he doesn't have his mic on, so he's refusing to be. See, we should see his avatar right now. He doesn't want to be on camera. We should see an avatar in the middle of us, so the split screen there.
I think from my side, I'm going to have to say goodbye because the South Africans flying back tomorrow. I can't be part of any of the. Yeah, I'm really.
Well, we've signed you up for a lot.
I know, but you also let me down yesterday, Christian. So
that's true.
Yes, so it's called balance. Okay. So yes, I've got to travel back tomorrow. So I am going to miss out on a lot of fun. I think you're going to still do some great stuff tomorrow. But from my side, it's been awesome.
We'll be back. We'll have some more interviews. We'll have another panel. We'll do our event wrap-up. And so we're coming in an earlier time tomorrow. But watch for that. And, of course, all the recordings will be available on LinkedIn and on YouTube following the ESPC 22 hashtag. Hashtag ESPC22. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank me.
You just did that.
Of course I did that.